so episode 5 of Silo is going to drop pretty much soon, but before that happens, I've got a few questions and theories that I want to go over from the first 4 episodes. So, as always, I'm Al, this is the Geek in Review. Now, before I get started, I just want to say thanks for taking the time to choose to watch this video. If you haven't watched any of my other reviews of Silo, they're up on the channel already. And if you haven't done it already, please subscribe to the channel, and if you make it all the way to the end of the video, leave a like as well. But anyway, so yeah, there's been a lot of questions about this show since it started, and I've been meaning to do this video for a few weeks, but I wanted to see what we were going to get revealed before I'd done it. So I want to talk about some questions and theories that I have, break down some of the things that I've noticed, and, you know, I might solve a few mysteries you don't know. Now, some of these things have been brought up in the show already, and some of them haven't, and some of them probably won't. And what I generally want to get to here is not talking about the plot of the show, but talking about the silo itself. Because the show has given us a lot of mysteries with regards to murder, what's going on outside the silo, what's going on inside the silo, why there's a cover-up, that sort of thing. And that keeps you guessing, that keeps you on edge. But if you remove all the plot with the characters and all those storylines and just look at the building and the life and the society in the silo, you kind of realise a few things that might not have occurred to you. So, talking about Earth, is the silo on Earth? Initially, I thought this might be a bit of a possibility that it was on Mars or another planet, but then when I thought about it again, if you look at the technology that's used within the silo with regards to PCs and the hard drives and all the stuff that was going on in admin, the technology looks as if it's somewhere between the late 80s and the early 90s in terms of hours. So if that's what they were using as a computer, I don't think they'd be able to build a structure like this outside the Earth. So I'm 99.9% sure the silo is on Earth, but then whereabouts is it? Because when you think about the people in the silo, there's different accents. There doesn't seem to be an identifiable culture either. You know, it's not clearly American, it's not clearly French, that sort of thing. As far as we know, they've been in the silo for well over 100 years, so maybe the last bits of what we would define as human culture have been erased or at least replaced by life in the silo. One mystery that is going to be, I'm sure, at the heart of the show later on, and no one's really talking about it yet, is why was it built in the first place? The question hasn't even been approached in the show at all, so far at least. But for me, that's the biggest question, because when you look at the size and scale of this structure, you're going to need a lot of time and resources to do it. So again, that's one of the reasons that I'm pretty sure it's on Earth. But what happened that this structure had to be built? What was it that they seen coming? Because you would need time in order to plan and prep and build this. So was it an asteroid? Was it an environmental disaster? Whatever it had to be, the builders of the silo knew that it was going to happen, or there was a very strong possibility that it would happen. So yeah, why build it? In order to prepare for some sort of huge, obviously massive catastrophe, because no one wants to go and live underground, let's be honest. So whatever it was that happened, the silo was the response to that. And when you're thinking about why was it built, you must ask the question, who built it? As I said a moment ago, there's no sort of nationality or culture within the silo for me that really stands out. So that indicates one thing: it wasn't built by a government. Because if it was, it would be far more within the line of how a political and government system works in our world. You know, there would be more politicians, there would be more soldiers. Because any government bunker would need troops, and there's no militaristic feel to the silo at all. It's not like that George Romero film, The Day of the Dead, where the scientists are stuck underground with the soldiers that are all going crazy, let's put it that way. So if it wasn't the government, then who? Well, I've got a few ideas I want to float on this. The first one is maybe it is some Elon Musk type that decided to build this for an impending global disaster. Or say, for example, a company like Google or Facebook, Meta, whatever you wanted to call it, wanted to save a bunch of core employees and their families, this is how they would do it. And again, if it was a company, not a government, that built this, that would explain the lack of the political system and the lack of the soldiers that we're not seeing. So, did some big CEO build the silo to save the world, or maybe even create their own dream world? This would also explain why their history was erased and might indicate a rebellion as well. Maybe it was a rebellion of workers or a union or something like that. But yeah, if you want to control the future, you've got to get rid of the past essentially. So I think that's why a lot of what we would see as normal cultural or pop cultural things no longer exist. But I'm going to get to that in a minute. In episode 4, we found out, or we got our first cultural reference, at least with Shakespeare, and that his work was banned in the silo. Now, this is a huge hint at life in the silo. Something so significant happened during the rebellion that the history of the greatest writer of all time was pretty much erased and definitely changed. So why would you do that? Well, maybe they didn't want the previous residents hanging on to the world that once was, but here's one thing that might not have occurred to you watching the show. No character that we have seen in the silo from any of the time periods, and no references that they've made to the history within the silo, has ever mentioned the fact that there's been, or there ever has considered to be, a plan to leave. Which, when you think about it, is incredibly odd. This place was built to keep people alive, but it's been over 100 years and there's no plan to exit. No one's even discussed it. I mean, maybe there has been and it's been forgotten or covered up, but as I said, you don't put this many people underground and not have a plan to keep them alive. So whatever that plan is, it involves not leaving the silo. Now, if it is a big company that is all behind this and it's sort of been forgotten about or covered up, they might not want to give up the power and control that they have over the population. But yeah, in these first 4 episodes, no one even aspires to go outside. No one talks about it or dreams about it. Life outside the silo isn't even considered. So whatever happened, the long-term plan was to stay alive in here rather than wait to repopulate the earth or try and grow crops or anything like that. So let's talk about life in the silo for a minute. There's a few things that have been jumping out at me. There's been a few mentions of restrictions on radios in the first few episodes, and at first I thought this was just to stop communications between the levels and control information. But as it goes on, it occurs to me that this might be to stop anyone with a radio overhearing something from the outside, because if the plan isn't to leave the silo, then I think it's reasonable enough to assume someone else would have come up with a similar plan and, not built something as big, but we have bunkers already that could support people for years. Not 100 years, but yeah, I think the whole radio thing is there might be someone out there and they don't want anyone to pick something up. Maybe that's what's happened before and what caused the rebellion, I don't know, but I definitely think that radios are going to play a huge part in this show for the remaining episodes. Now, I'm not going to look at the specific character of Mayor Johns here, I'm just talking about the mayors themselves in the silo. Because the mayor is the highest ranking person that we've met, they seem to run the show. So it's not the president, not the senator, not the prime minister, not the queen, it's the mayor. Which again makes me think that this hasn't been built by the government, because mayor can't be the highest rank or level for someone to achieve. And when I thought about this, it really stuck with me. Because when you think about it, if you watch any sort of sci-fi or disaster film, it's never the mayor that's calling the shots to save the world, it's the president. So I think that there has to be someone above the mayor. Maybe not now, but previously. Maybe with the rebellion they did restructure the political sort of side of the silo and they made it so that the mayor was the highest rank. But initially from day one, I don't think that the person running the silo was called, Mayor Smith or whatever it was. And then when you think about the fact that, well, if the mayor is the highest ranking person in the silo, who's above them and where are they? And I'm going to go off on another theory on this, so give me a second, and also like and subscribe. Because we've seen the machines that help create the silo already, and looking at that, I can't help but think if there's one tunnel that most people aren't aware of, there might be more here. So, is the silo bigger than we thought? Maybe. Maybe everything we're seeing in the silo here is just the bottom of a much bigger structure. So maybe there's more to the silo, or it's a lot bigger than we realise. Also, maybe there's more than one of these silos and the mayor is just like a supervisor level and the president or the governor of the silo is somewhere else or something like that, calling the shots. That would also explain or maybe tie into the radio theory as well. If there is another silo and only the mayor is aware, that they exist to communicate with them, that might be why radios don't want to get used. Also, maybe when the rebellion happened, the rebels won, and this is the rebel silo that we're seeing. I think that's entertaining as well because they've changed so much that they've erased all of human history, so they've no problem erasing their own in the silo if, say, the bad guys won and took over. And again, that goes back to the whole controlling the structure and society of the silo. So another thing that's weird is there's no elevators, or at least there's no elevators that the people in the silo are aware of. It seems to take a day or several days to walk between the levels. So when you think about the structure of the silo, initially, you wouldn't be able to build that without the use of elevators, I don't think. Now, I can understand once it was built and complete and you have these people in there, the fact that you might want to cut them off to help control and divide the society if that's your thing. But yeah, it's very, very odd that there's no elevators that anyone's aware of. Now, there are obviously a ton of other questions going on regarding the plot with Juliet, Holston, all that stuff, but I just wanted to focus on the mystery of the silo itself. As always, these are just some of my thoughts, and they're not even all the theories that I have on the silo. I'm keeping a few close to my chest in case they turn out to be right. But I want to hear what you guys think. Have you watched the first 4 episodes, or by now, the first 5 episodes of Silo? Let me know your theories in the comments below, and if you've read the books, please don't spoil it because I've not, and I'm sure other viewers haven't as well. But yeah, I want to know what you think. What's going on in the silo? What's going on outside? If you don't want to leave a comment, you can follow me on Twitter at The Geeks Reviews. And if you've made it this far, as always, please leave a like on the video. And if you haven't done it already, subscribe to the channel. And remember, don't tell anyone you want to go outside.